Hey everyone, this is a new flavor of the month and that is Gnar. Now, I will tell you everything you need to know to be able to play Gnar in your next rank games. Alright, let's start out with Gnar's abilities. He got two forms. We're gonna start off with mini form, which is the ranged form. So when he's in mini form, you gain movement speed, you gain attack speed, and you gain attack range. Now you're going to have a rage bar, and when that rage bar hits 100, you're going to transform into the big form. Now that rage bar is increasing every time you hit people or you get hit. It increases by 4 to 11 depending on your level, over 2 seconds when you hit or get hit by people. Now you also gain a little bit of rage when you hit things initially. Once you reach 100 rage, you can choose to transform into big form instantly by using an ability, or you can stay in range form for 4 seconds if you just want to auto attack. After transforming, you're going to be transformed for 15 seconds and you're going to be the big form for 15 seconds. Now as big form, you lose all the buffs that you got as mini form, but instead you get base AD, base health, base armor, and magic resist, and the health you got you'll keep when you go back to mini form, so it also works as a healing tool. Now let's go over all the abilities. First you're going to do small form and then we'll do big form. The first is boomerang throw. When you throw it out and hit a person, he takes damage and he is slowed for 2 seconds. Now the second target or third target to get hit takes 50% damage only, so you want to hit the person as the first target instead of hitting behind minions because it's a lot less damage. Now if you catch the boomerang on the way back, your cooldown is reduced by 40% of the max cooldown, so it's really important you catch the boomerangs. Next up, Hyper, the W. So the W is a stackable ability. Once you stack 3 times on them, they'll take a bunch of damage and you get movement speed. Now the core thing to think about is your Q, the boomerang, makes a stack, and your auto attack. So generally what you want to do is auto Q auto, because they get slowed, which means you can easily get that in, and you're going to proc your ability. Also, one small thing that most people don't know, when Gnar leaves Mega form, he also gets hyper activated for the movement speed, so he gets a little bit of movement speed. Next up we have Hop. So once you use Hop, if you jump on an enemy, you're going to bounce again and jump further, which is really cool. You can jump really far. Now if you don't jump on an enemy, you're just going to jump normal and land on the ground. If you hit an enemy, you deal physical damage and you slow them by 80% for 0.5 seconds, which means it's just a tiny slow so they can't move. You also gain some attack speed after using your jump for 6 seconds. Alright, time to talk about Mega form, your melee form. This form is similar to the other one in a lot of aspects. Let's start with the Q, Boulder Toss. You toss a massive boulder at enemies and you do a lot of damage. It also slows people for 2 seconds if you hit them. Now you can pick up this ability and refunds the ability cooldown by 70%, so it's a lot stronger. Next up, Wallop, you get a small indicator, and that indicator you deal physical damage and you stun all enemies. This is really good to combo with all abilities to make sure you hit them. Next up, Crunch. Similar to the mini form, you jump into the air and then you slow people that you hit and you deal damage to them. Now the only difference is you cannot bounce with this form, so it's only a singular jump and then you deal a ton of damage. Alright, it's time for the most exciting one, Gnar, the ultimate ability. This ability does a ton of damage, it knocks all units, and it slows them by 45%. Now if you knock people into a wall, you do 50% bonus damage and they're stunned instead of slowing. An amazing ability to use combined with a jump, stun people into a wall, then you can follow up with Wallop, and you're going to use this as your execution generally, or catching people in teamfights. Often you can kill people in laning phase at about 70% of health if you do a full combo on them, including your ultimate. Alright, time for one of the most important things to know, Gnar's skill order. First you max Q, then you max W, and then you max E last. Now what you generally want to do is level Q level 1, then you go for E secondary, and afterwards you go as the last ability W. Alright, time to talk about runes. Runes are generally pretty straightforward, but there's 2 different rune pairs that you want to use. The first one you go Grasp, then you tend to go Demolish, afterwards you go Second Wind or Bone Plating, and then last you go Overgrowth. And then the secondary one you go for Taste of Blood, because you're going to be autoing a lot. You have a ranged ability in your range form, which is really nice. And then you go Ravenous Hunter. Then the small runes, you go attack damage, and armor or magic resist, depending what you need. Some people also opt in for attack speed in the first one, which is also okay. Both of those works. Now that is the most standard rune page. Now there's also another rune page that is quite often used, and that is Fleet Footwork, Triumph, Alacrity or Tenacity, depending on what you need, and then Last Stand. And in the secondary, you actually opt in for getting Bone Plating or Second Wind, and then Overgrowth. And just as before in the small ones, you can go 80 or attack speed in the first one, then you go 80 in the second one, and you go armor or magic resist in the third one. Pretty straightforward. Alright, it's time for item builds. This is what I'm going to recommend. So in the first one, you go either Dawn's Blade or Dawn's Shield first. Dawn Blades tend to be better unless you really need shield, so start with that one if you can. Then afterwards, what you want to aim for is getting boots as early as possible if you need to be defensive, otherwise rush your mythic item. In the mythic item department, you want to either go for a Stride Breaker or a Gnar. Gnar was recently nerfed, so I don't think it's as good anymore, and I prefer Stridebreaker. But there are situations where you're going to be against 5 people in melee range, and Gnar will have massive value. So you gotta figure out what you kinda wanna use, but if you don't know, just go for Stridebreaker, that one always works. Then for the next item, after you got your Mythic, you wanna go for a Sterex Gauge. It's generally just the best item to get. It's a fantastic item. Once you have that, you wanna look to get either Magic Resist, which could be a Force of Nature, or Armor, which could be Raynon's Omen. It could be a Thornmail, or it could be a Deadman's Plate. Often people will opt in for Deadman's Plate because they want to do more damage and it gives movement speed, which is really nice. However, if you're against a lot of crit people, you want to have Raynons, and if you're against a lot of healers, you want to have Thornmail. So you got to think about what you kind of want, but it's going to be one of those. And then afterwards, you want to just kind of build the same path. Things you could implement is Guardian Angel, and you could also implement a Gargoyle Stoneplate as the later items. This is thinking 4th or 5th item, right? You can implement those, but if you don't want to implement those, all the other ones still work. So you could have something like a Raynons, a Deadman's Plate, and a Thornmail. I hope all of it made sense. If you have any questions, leave a comment below and I'll answer them. And then I'll see you guys next time. Peace.